Welcome back. This is El Sam. Today we are going to be treating a very interesting topic, quadratic equations. So if you're excited, let's go. First, what is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is a polynomial of degree 2. What this means is that if you have an equation like this, let's say x plus 3x squared plus 4 equal to 0. So the equality makes it an equation. Now the highest power of x, which is our alphabet, is 2. So the degree is 2. This is a quadratic equation. Now another thing you need to know, quadratic equations have a standard form. And that standard form is so this is the standard form for a quadratic equation. Now watch, you have a, which is the leading coefficient. So you have a, which is the coefficient of x squared. So the a now, we'll call it the leading coefficient. That's the coefficient of x squared is a. Now b is called the linear coefficient and c is the constant term. Now another thing to note is that for quadratic equations, a, b and c are constants. They are constants like 2, 3, 1. So they are constants. So both a, b and c are constants. Another thing to note for quadratic equations is that a is not equal to 0. So a cannot be 0. Once a is 0, a, which is the coefficient, leading coefficient, once it is 0, that equation is no longer quadratic. Okay? So with all of these, I've described what we call a quadratic equation. Take note, it looks like this: ax squared plus bx plus c equal 0. So we're going to be working with x for most of the cases, but note that any alphabet can be used. So you can see ay squared plus by plus c equal 0. This is also the standard form. So here y is used, here x is used. So take note, the highest power of x, that's the alphabet we are working with, is 2. A, b and c are constants and a cannot be 0. That means you must have this term in the equation for it to be quadratic. So I believe you know what a quadratic equation looks like now. You know what it is now. So I'm going to give you 6 equations. You tell me whether or not they are quadratic. Let's go. So the instruction is state whether or not the equation is quadratic. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So number 1, x plus 3x plus 4 equal 0. So here you state quadratic or you state not quadratic. So that's the first one. The second, reciprocate the feeling, find peace beneath the surface. Everything's peachy, everything's peachy. Split personality, All right, so I will give you 60 seconds to fill in your answers. So number 1, so in the comment section you can place it number 1 quadratic, number 2 not quadratic, and so on. So 1 to 6. I'm waiting. All right, let's see if you got the answers correctly. So number 1, is it quadratic? No, number 1 is not. It's not quadratic. And why is it not quadratic? The highest degree there is 1, so it's not quadratic. Following this meaning, the degree has to be 2. So number 1 is not quadratic. What of number 2? Number 2 is actually quadratic. So why is it quadratic? The highest degree there is 2. It has a degree of 2, so it's quadratic. Number 3 is quadratic. This is our A, B, and C, and we have degree of 2. So number 3 is actually quadratic. So number 4, yeah, even though we have this, it has this, which disqualifies it. So that's a cubic equation, not quadratic. So this one is not. So this is not quadratic. So for 5 and 6, 5 looks it, but the degree 2 is missing. So this is not. So it's not quadratic. How about 6? So we have our A as 1, x squared. So this actually satisfies this. So we said A cannot be 0. So A is not 0 and the degree is 2. So it is actually quadratic. Yeah. So if you got all the answers, congratulations. If you missed some, I believe you've learned why they are quadratic and not quadratic. So now we'll move to methods of solution. So how do we actually solve quadratic equations? Now that we know what quadratic equations are, how do we solve them? And there are 4 major methods of solution. Yeah. So the 4 methods of solution are 1. Factorization. 2. Completing the square. 3. The use of formula. And 4. Graphical method. So these are the 4 methods we are going to be using to solve quadratic equations. Now, a few things to bear in mind before we start factorization method. 1, when you solve a quadratic equation, you generally have 2 answers. Now, those 2 answers, we call them the roots of the equation. So things to bear in mind. 1, you get 2 answers called roots. Let's call them alpha and beta. So when you solve a quadratic equation, you can say your answer looks like, let's say x equal to 3 or x equal to 4. So these are how the answers look generally. Now, the first answer, let's call it alpha. So the roots of the quadratic equation, which are the answers, we represent them. I'm going to represent them with alpha and beta. Now, bear in mind that the 2 roots, if you add them together, okay, like the sum of roots, like if you add the 2 answers together, the answer is equal to minus b over a. Now save this one somewhere in your memory. We're going to need this later in the lecture. And now the two roots you get when you solve with any of the methods, if you multiply them, we call that product of roots. The answer is equal to C over A. Also bear this in mind. Now, what do I mean by A, B, and C as shown here? Now, remember our standard form. Standard form says that ax squared plus bx plus c equal 0. So this is standard form of a quadratic equation. Right? Now, a is the coefficient of x squared, that's the leading coefficient. B, as you can see here, is the linear coefficient, which is the coefficient of x. And c is the constant term. Now, for any quadratic equation you solve, when you divide the value of b with a, you divide b by a, what you get, negative, it gives you the roots of the sum of the roots of the equation. And when you divide c by a, you get the product of the roots of that particular equation. So for example, if we have an equation, say 4x squared minus 3x plus 10 equal 0. Now we've not solved to get the roots of the equation, but be rest assured that the sum of the roots, will be equal to minus b over a, which is, what's our b? Remember, this is our a comparing b. B is negative 3, right? So that gives us minus b. B is negative 3 over a. What's our a? 4. So that gives us 3 over 4. The product of the roots, that's c over a, which is what? What's our c? 10 over a, 4, which is 5 over 2. All right, so that's a long one. Now we've been introduced to quadratic equations. We've seen what quadratic equations are. We've seen the 4 methods of solution. In our next lecture, we'll look at the first one, which is factorization. We'll see how to solve quadratic equations using factorization method. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe now so you can keep getting interesting solutions to mathematical problems. I remain El Sam.